Hello once again, I'm Ephraim225 here to celebrate the release of a certain arcade game on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 with a special video. It is going to be a Grandmaster playthrough of the original Tetris, the Grandmaster, the first entry in the legendary series of Tetris games by Arika. Now, I'm certain the game of Tetris needs no introduction. Many of you are probably wondering what makes this version so special. Well, back in 1998, this game was created as a hardcore Tetris challenge for players who had mastered the game. It was created over in Japan, of course, and over there, players were very much fans of Sega's version of Tetris in particular. Many companies had their own version of Tetris at this point in time, and Sega's version for Japan was the one that stood on top. It introduced a lot of quality of life changes to the game. If you've ever wondered how the game of Tetris can be improved upon, then I think the Sega version is something you should take a look at. So this version plays a lot like Sega Tetris, except it pioneers even more game mechanics, and rather than simply having the player play infinitely until the game over, this game presents a finite challenge that you have to complete in as little time as possible, and there is a grading system that in this game just depends on how many points you score and a couple of other things that I'll talk about later. Tetris the Grandmaster is famous for having some of the toughest challenges in video game history. However, for Tetris the Grandmaster 1, Arika did not yet know how far they wanted to push players, so this version of the game is very much completable for most players. I think with a couple months of practice, most players would be able to do it, if you're decently skilled at Tetris. However, in order to get the Grandmaster grade, you really gotta study and learn how the pieces rotate in this game. Like how they spawn in, what moves you can make, how the wall kicking system works. These are all things that you have to learn. It really gets you paying attention to the nuances of the game system, more so than I think most other Tetris games would. And TGM is one of my favorite versions of Tetris simply because all of these things that you need to learn are relatively simple to learn. I tried looking at modern Tetris, for example, and all of that wall kicking and weird rotation stuff, it's way too complicated for me. I mean, I'm not saying TGM is easier than modern Tetris. Modern Tetris can be challenging as well, but I just think TGM is easier to learn and way, way harder to master. So to talk about the gameplay for a little bit, I'm building my stack way up to the top of the screen because in TGM1 there is no hard drop or anything like that. You can't push a button and instantly have your piece fall to the bottom of the screen. So in order to save time, I build my stack up to the top of the screen so that the pieces lock in place faster. I can place them faster, and that means the next piece will be coming out faster. This is a game of time attack. Every move needs to be made as quickly as possible, so you take as little time as possible, which is also why I'm scoring mainly Tetrises. In this game, the speed level advances every time you place down a piece, and it also advances for every line cleared. And since the line clear animation is the same amount of time, and no matter how many lines you actually cleared, I may as well score Tetrises every time. It would actually be faster to try and stack triples at the top of the screen, clearing 3 lines at once instead of 4, because you don't have to wait for the line piece to go all the way down the well, but that is very much more difficult and kind of an advanced thing. I'm not a super advanced player, even though I do have a GM grade in this game. As I said, it's very much achievable for most players, given enough time learning and practicing the game. So I'll talk about the grading system for a little bit. The grades go from 9 to 1 and then S1 to S9. You can see that I'm at grade S2. Grades are entirely based on score. You can see that I will get grade S3 at 30,000 points. So you could say that the ultimate goal of the game is to have 128,000 points, as that will get you an S9, and then you have to do a couple of other things in order to get the GM grade. They're very simple to understand. I just passed level 300, so at level 300 you need to have a grade of 1, and then at level 500 you need to have a grade of S4. This is very easy to achieve, honestly. Just score a bunch of Tetrises and you'll be good. Of course, Tetrises are worth more and more points the later in the game you are, so I would say if you can get to grade S4 by the time you're required to have it, then you're pretty much good to go. Just keep making Tetrises and you'll clear the game quickly enough as is. It really is that simple. More or less, the grading requirement and the time requirements basically go hand in hand. If you can clear one, you can probably clear the others. Oh, and also your total time throughout the game needs to be under 13 minutes and 30 seconds in order to have that Grandmaster grade at the end. So, very easy. I actually cleared this in under 11 minutes. So, even a player like me, I don't consider myself a super, super good Grandmaster, but I can at least get a pretty good time in this game. Also, you might notice that I did something weird. I cleared that single at the end of the level 300 section. So this game is divided into sections of 100 levels. I'm in section 4 because it's level 400 onwards. And in order to go from one section to the next, you will actually have the counter stop at the 99th level of each section until you clear a line. So you have to clear a line in order to move on to the next section. It's a little bit strange, but it's kind of interesting, because then you have to actually, like, time it right. You have to clear a Tetris at the moment that it would take you to the next section, because each line is worth 1 level, so a full Tetris is going to be worth 4 levels. It's a little bit interesting. So yes, I'm at S5, so I'm well past the grading requirement that I need. And things are getting just a little bit dicey, but I think I can handle it. The next section is actually going to change the gameplay dramatically. So you can see that I'm kind of trying to stack in such a way as that the columns in the center are the highest. It's called pyramid stacking, because we are now in what most players call 20G, or instant gravity. In this section of the game, this is as fast as it goes, by the way. It's not going to get any quicker. From here on out, the pieces now instantly drop to the bottom of the stack in a single frame. And that changes things dramatically. You now only have half a second of lock delay. That is something that Sega Tetris introduced. Lock delay basically means that when the piece touches the stack, you have half a second to get it to wherever you need it to be before it locks permanently. And if the piece ever becomes airborne, by the way, that will also reset the lock delay. So something you can do is to, like, make a jagged staircase of sorts and then just rapidly tap the button so that every time the piece becomes airborne, going down another step, the lock delay resets and gives you more time to make a decision. Of course, this takes more time, so if you're time attacking, you don't want to do that. So the reason instant gravity is a game changer is because, let's say you have a kind of pit in the center and you've got your well on the right side. When the piece spawns, if the gravity is instant, it's going to drop straight into the pit and you can't really get it out of there and into the well, if you've got like a line piece, for example. So that's the reason building up the middle columns to be the highest is a common tactic in this game. The piece will spawn on top of the column, and then you can move it to either side wherever you want it to be. Another thing you have to do is you have to stack specifically so that the eyepiece can rotate into the well, because it actually rotates in a really weird way. In order to rotate the eyepiece, the 2 blocks under the 3rd column of the eyepiece's horizontal position need to be open. I know that must have sounded weird just describing it with words, but if you watch how I rotate the eyepiece, you can kind of understand what I mean. You also don't want to have random holes in the board because, like, even on the surface of the stack, if you've got a random hole, sometimes pieces can get stuck in that hole with no way of getting out. You can see that instant gravity really changes how you play the game of Tetris, especially with this rotation rule set. Now, the developers knew this might be a difficult task to accomplish with this high speed, so they actually give the players a new tool in this game. This game introduces wall kicking, where if you rotate a piece and it obstructs part of the stack or the wall, the game will attempt to push it to the side one tile, and then if that piece is now in an open spot, it'll move to that spot. So this allows you to get away with certain rotations that wouldn't work in the original versions of Tetris on the NES or something. So you'll see me pull off a couple of moves that you wouldn't think were possible until you realize, wall kicking, that's how it's done. And again, wall kicking is something that occurs in modern Tetris as well, but it's just a lot more complicated because there are a lot more possible wall kicks that actually work. So memorizing them all is a bit more taxing on my brain. So something I haven't really drawn attention to is the fact that I am playing with a game controller, and this is apparently a bit of an anomaly. Most players that I've seen either play with a keyboard or they play with an arcade stick, because this was an arcade game after all. But I refuse to use those because, well, I guess it's a little bit petty to say this, but I just didn't believe in the idea of buying one of those huge arcade sticks just to play Tetris. In fact, I don't even believe in using those giant boxes to play fighting games either. I mean, if I were ever in a fighting game tournament, I would be using a game controller, no doubt. I would probably lose because I'm not good at fighting games, but at least I would be using my preferred controller. This is just one of the best inventions for gaming, I feel, and, you know, I'll keep using it. I mean, some games I prefer keyboards, but now I'm getting a little bit off topic, so I better get back to the gameplay. Things looked a little bit dire back there, but things should be a-okay from here on out. Also, if anyone's wondering what's up with the backgrounds, I have no idea. There's a brain for this section, and then the next section is, well, you be the judge when we get there. Oh geez, am I at the top of the screen again? I really did force myself to wait for the line piece so I could actually score the Tetris. That's probably not a good idea. If you start getting to the top of the screen at this level, there's no benefit to being at the top of the screen like this. Although if you end the game at the bottom of the screen, I think that saves you some time. But you really do want to try to skim if you start really getting up there. Skimming is when you intentionally score a single, double, or triple instead of a Tetris, just to give yourself some space. It's important to learn when to do that. That goes for any version of Tetris, by the way. So we're in the final section now, and there aren't any point requirements here on out. Ooh, but things are getting a little bit sticky. Yes, I have to place all of these pieces in weird positions because I insist on waiting for the line piece, and that hole was probably not necessary. I probably didn't need to do that. Anyways, as long as I get to 999, it doesn't really matter how many lines I make, because you can see that I am well under the 13-minute time limit you need to beat in order to get the Grandmaster grade at this point. And as long as you fulfilled all the other requirements, you'll get it. Oh, and I just did a really cool move there. I want to point that out. That is what I call Frenching the piece, laying the T-block flat so it can pass over the hole without getting stuck. I say that because there is a French player named Qlex who is really well known for being able to do that at very fast speeds. He is one of the really great Tetris the Grandmaster players, and I have actually talked to him a couple of times. Not really recently, though. I should probably see if I can catch one of his streams, if he's still doing that anyways. So there it is, that's the Grandmaster grade, and after beating the game and getting to level 999, the credits roll and you can keep playing, but unfortunately the credits are being obscured by the stack itself. So if you are bad at the game, still, I mean, if you got the Grandmaster grade, obviously you're not bad, but if you are not at the bottom of the screen, you don't get to see who made this wonderful game. It seems like a design flaw, honestly. I mean, don't you guys want your names to be known? Or maybe you don't. Because then people would, well, I don't know, if they got frustrated, they might want to do something. Anyways, it's okay to top out during the credits. I still got the Grandmaster grade, and I'm still going to get in the rankings or everything. Thank you for watching this playthrough of Tetris the Grandmaster 1. I might do a video on Tetris the Grandmaster 2 and maybe 3, but I'm just not as good at those games as I am at TGM 1. I don't have a Grandmaster grade in those games. I got really close, but, you know, sometimes close is the closest you can get. Anyways, I'm Ephraim225, and this has been Tetris the Grandmaster 1. See you later.